Hey guys, welcome again to my channel. So sorry for a long delay releasing this video. Well, in this part of the illustration, I'm trying to focus more on the colors because I already did all the details and all the design of the illustration in the previous part. But in this part, I'm trying to set the mood of the illustration. This is my first point that I'm gonna talk. When you're trying to set the mood of the illustration, I already did like a really important part of this process, that is setting a mood with the values. When you set the mood with the values, you have a big step in the process, because you're creating all the values and how the lighting is gonna affect all the illustration, and that is gonna help you a lot to in the second part of the illustration that you're making. And with the colors, as you can see here, I'm throwing some really different colors because I'm not focus more on the details right now, because that part of the details is gonna come later in the illustration. But right now I'm trying to focus to throw some colors, how these colors work with the value that I already create, because it can be really tricky, because if you choose some wrong colors, like a really bright color for parts that are really dark, it's not gonna work too well. So try to be really self-aware of what color are you using, and what values are you really choose on your thumbnails that you create. As you can see here, this part is really loose all. I'm trying to really set the colors, and the mood is like a really set, and I think it works really well. In this type of illustration is a really painterly style, because I'm not using any photo to photo bashing my illustration, because I want to create a feeling that I draw, I paint, I illustrate all the details and all the stuff on my illustration, because I'm creating an illustration that is going for a fantasy book cover. And the style that I'm approaching, the style that I want to emulate in this illustration, I need the people that see this illustration get really the feeling that is really fantastic, and it's really like a kind of traditional painting. There's no photo in the back, there's no photo like really photoshopped, so I'm trying to use the photo only for reference, to look how the lighting looks and how it affects all the elements in my illustration. The other thing that I want to talk to you is these other points. Details take time, so be patient with your illustration. In the first part of the illustration, I create all the design, and I work a lot of reference, as you see. But in this part of the illustration, you have to be really patient, because you in a part that you only like polishing all the stuff that you already create, because if you set all the colors right, if you set all the values right, and you create a design that works really well, the only thing that you need now is to be patient, because you need to polish all the stuff and create all the details, and try to create a focus point. As you can see here in my illustration, I have mainly two focal points. The first one is the lady with the jar, like drinking the beer, and the second one obviously is the face of the ogre in the back. I'm trying to jump with the focal point in the face of the girl and the face of the ogre, so the people can see where is my where do I want the attention goes. So try to create two focal points, and mostly in the all the illustration that you create. If you want to create a focal point, you try to give that part, the focal point, more details. So you have to polish it really more, and you have to be really sharp with all the edges. So if you do that, I assure you that the eye of the viewer is gonna go directly to the focal point that you already create. In that focal point is gonna be helped with other stuff like values and how you work your colors, how you work all the direction, all the things in your illustration. Because if you create, I don't know, a real center composition for your illustration, you need to all the elementals around the focal point kind of arrow to the face of this illustration to the focal point, because you want to the eye of the people, the eye of the viewer go directly to the focal point. So get help with the other stuff in your illustration. All the elements you're gonna put in your illustration, they need to have a purpose. If you have a purpose like really established and really well, it's gonna help you a lot it's gonna help you really better to deliver that message that you want. So pay attention to how you put all the stuff on the canvas, how you put all the elements, because that is gonna help you a lot to create a composition that keeps the eye of the viewer for a longer time in your illustration. The other point that I want to talk to you is the texture. As you can see here, I have really different materials in this illustration. I have metal, I have leather, I have some fabric. Every material that you're painting, every material that you're drawing, it should have some kind of values, because if you set the values right, I assure you that the viewer is gonna understand. His eye is gonna look on the illustration, and he's gonna understand really well how this thing is working. How are you creating this stuff? Even if you're drawing a really abstract thing, it doesn't have a really clear concept. But if you do the materials right and the texture right, and you use your values right, that is gonna help you a lot to deliver that message so that message to the eyes, so the eye can understand what material is that. So try to do some studies on materials. That is gonna help you a lot with all the things that you want to deliver in your illustration. So as you can see here, all my materials, I want them to look differently from each other. Some of them, as the hammer of this girl, is like is a metal, and that metal reflects a lot of light. So every material is different, so pay attention to that, and that will help you incredibly. This is the second part of this book cover video process. In the first part, I approached the idea and concept of this illustration, how I create the thumbnails, work the idea of the characters, and finish the line work. If you haven't checked it, please click here.